Good morning, everyone. I am joined today by the amazing Debbie Gross with the with Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts. My name is Ashley Session, and I serve as the Senior Director of External Affairs and Strategic Initiatives here at the Committee of 70. And it is a very exciting day across, not only in Philadelphia proper, but across the Commonwealth for elections, specifically judicial elections. And we are very excited to have Debbie here. So Debbie, I'm gonna give you a chance to introduce yourself, and then we'll jump into our questions.
Great. Thank you very much. So I'm Debbie Gross. I'm the CEO of Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts. I retooled during COVID. I was a commercial litigator, and now I am the CEO of this amazing organization, and it is an odd numbered year, which means judicial elections.
Awesome. So you kind of gave us a little bit of what the courts do, but I'm going to specifically ask, what is Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts, and what do you all do?
So we educate about the courts. That's where my heart is. I will say we have a lot of programs so people can understand how important the courts are to their daily lives. We have a court basics program just to explain the court system. We have criminal law, civil law. We even teach one-day law school for journalists. We go into retirement communities, into high schools. I mean, we speak about the law. It is really important that people understand the importance of this third branch of government and the importance of its independence.
Thank you. How will this election affect the judicial composition in Pennsylvania?
So I'll say, how will it affect the judicial composition? Well, right now, our Supreme Court has 6 justices. There is 1 vacancy. So should there be, a decision where there would have been a split decision, it could have been a tie, right? So that's why we have 7. So we need to fill that seat. But in general, it's just really important to make sure that we have a full complement of judges because really our judges are overworked and they could use the help.
Thank you. And then, so what is the impact of our court system on the lives of Pennsylvanians?
So it's interesting you asked that. People don't realize it, but our courts in Pennsylvania impact everybody's everyday life. So for example, the Commonwealth Court, where we have 1 seat up right now for election, issued a decision earlier this year about whether the way we fund our educational system in Pennsylvania is constitutional, complies with Pennsylvania's constitution. The court held it didn't. So, a basic issue of education. We also have our Supreme Court, making decisions about I'm just trying to think of a recent decision about voting, about voter redistricting, right? So that everyday lives, we have the Superior Court making a decision on the validity of a limited liability, I'll say, in a nursing home. So these decisions go across the gamut: criminal law, housing, civil law, and the courts decide.
Thank you. And so speaking of judges, and you kind of just went through those courts, and you just talked about how they're being elected today, and of course in the general in November. So just your personal opinion or your organization's opinion, should judges be elected or appointed?
So the organization and I both believe that we should be appointing judges. How we appoint judges is a different way. We call it merit selection, but there are a lot of different methods of merit selection. But what's concerning with judicial elections is the amount of monies that gets raised, as well as potential conflicts. So, for example, the Wisconsin Supreme Court judicial seat this year, it was a $50 million of fundraising. That's a tremendous amount of money. And who gives this money? Is it attorneys who are before the court? Is it businesses who are before the court? The court then will but the court should recuse him or herself from a decision if there was a contribution made to that support that judge's, political campaign, but sometimes they don't even know because monies come through political action committees, PACs, or dark money, as it's also known.
Thank you for that. Okay, my dog is going off, of course. Sorry. So what are the advantages and or drawbacks of electing judges?
So the drawbacks of electing judges are the financial implications that, that result from raising monies. The other thing is that judges can't and shouldn't speak to issues, right, that they're going to rule on. So, you think you're electing a judge because they have a political D or R in front of their position. But once they reach the bench, they're supposed to be independent. So, if we are really concerned with, we want the will of the people to speak, the will of the people don't necessarily and shouldn't necessarily know how that judge is going to rule. The other disadvantage is that most people don't vote. Unfortunately, it's shown over time that only 20% of our population, of our voting population, comes out to vote in odd numbered years for judges. It's because it's a little intimidating. They don't know who these people are. They don't know how to find out information. I mean, there is much more information available out there now about the judges. There are my PMC's website, www.pmconline.org, lists a lot of resources that somebody can click on and find out in order to find out about the candidates. But again, they're not supposed to tell you how they're going to vote. So, you're electing somebody maybe because of how their name is, or how much money they raise, so how many commercials they can, put on TV, as opposed to probably the merit of their application.
And I guess some of the big questions I hear locally is, why should voters vote in judicial races? You talked a little bit about the functions of the higher courts, but in terms of local elections, why should they be paying attention to those races? And I always talk about, and I always ask people to tell folks how it impacts their bottom line and or their day-to-day life.
So it's interesting. I was just, before I got on here, reading a decision by our local trial court, the Court of Common Pleas, about handling an injunction with respect to a city ordinance about not being able to print firearms or build ghost guns. Okay, so that impacts everybody's daily life. And it was brought first at the trial court level, at the Court of Common Pleas. Also, our entry-level courts, we call them, either they're in Philadelphia, it's the municipal court. Outside of Philadelphia, it's magisterial district courts. They handle a tremendous amount of cases brought by individuals who represent themselves. So, a landlord-tenant matter, a dispute over, honestly, a tree falling on a property and causing damage, you hire a contractor. I mean, all these kinds of disputes get resolved by the court system.
Thank you. And then our final question, we're breezing through these, so I love it.
Oh, sorry.
But you're fine. You're fine. What can be done to increase public trust and confidence in the judiciary?
So, unfortunately, I say right now, we have a lot in the news about our U.S. Supreme Court. And so that has, and they don't have a code of conduct, right? Unfortunately, they are the only court in that I'm aware of that has no code of judicial conduct. I can tell you that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court has, all the judges in Pennsylvania have a code of conduct under which they have to operate and abide. And if there are complaints, they go to the Judicial Conduct Board and they are thoroughly investigated. So that should give people in Pennsylvania confidence that their judges know they have rules that they have to follow, and if not, there's a higher authority that's going to look into it and oversee it. The other thing that will give people confidence is the importance that the judiciary is independent, right? They are not going to rule because they have a D on their forehead or an R on their forehead, but they're going to rule because their boss is the rule of law, is the Constitution, is the existing case law that has occurred and been decided.
I guess any final words you have around today's election and, of course, the upcoming election in November.
So it's important for people to go out to vote because really, again, 20% of our population vote for the judicial elections, which means that we have a minority making decisions for a majority. So, if people really believe in the need or the right to elect judges, then you need to come out and vote, because otherwise it doesn't really make any sense. And again, there are plenty of websites out there that have done the homework and the investigation. So the Philadelphia Bar Association has done an exceedingly thorough investigation into the judges running in the courts for the courts of common pleas and municipal court. The Pennsylvania Bar Association has done a thorough investigation for the judges running for the appellate courts. Allegheny County Bar Association has done similarly an investigation for the judges running in Allegheny for their courts of common pleas and their and I think in their magisterial district courts. So there are resources out there. I mean, do I have another minute? I'll go quickly through the investigation.
You do have all the time you need.
Okay, so what happens is that the first thing is a candidate fills out a questionnaire, submits answers. Then there's a team put together, for example, by the Philly Bar Association. It's 5 people, one of whom is a non-lawyer. So there are non-lawyers participating in this process. The other lawyers have to make sure that they don't know this candidate. They then go out and seek 20 references not given by the candidate. So it's, people who have opposed this candidate, who judges before whom this candidate has been, community members. Candidates should be well-rounded, right? What activities do they participate in? How do they give back? As a lawyer, we are trained, I will say, that it's important to give back. And so there's a bunch of 20 interviews. You do your reading of their briefs and writing. And then you interview the candidate. This team comes up with a recommendation that then goes before the Philly Bar Association, for example, commission, which is comprised of 35 people. Again, politics doesn't have any place in this. It's 5 non-lawyers. It's a bunch of various, I'll say, interested lawyers. So we have the DA, the public defender, we have the plaintiff's trial lawyers, we have the defense bar, we have the criminal bar, we have family law, we have public interest. All these interests, these various sections or segments of the legal profession are represented in this commission. They then make a recommendation after they review, I'll say, the team, the 5-person team's recommendation. They then grill the candidate and they make a decision. So it is a thorough vetting, and information about the candidate is available on the website. So I just feel as though people should have confidence in the underlying research and investigation if they would go look at it.
Thank you so much for all of the information. Of course, we will link this to our Facebook page and push it out. And then we'll also link your website so that folks can find you and ask you questions and use your resources around judges and courts and ask you all the questions that they need to ask. Thank you again on behalf of Committee of 70 for taking your time on this what will be historic day in the city.
And it's beautiful out.
Gorgeous.
There's nothing that can prevent or should prevent anybody from going to vote.
Yeah, go vote, folks. You have a ton of time today. Take some time out and go vote and exercise your right to vote. So we are excited and we are thankful to you, Debbie.
Thank you very much for all that you do.
Thank you.
Bye.